Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm Peter Lavelle. Today's topic is a first in a series, which I'm calling the prehistory of post-neoliberalism, and I want to focus on populism now. We're joined by Don DeBar. He is a radio host as well as a well-known and respected anti-war activist, and we also have George Sauer, our founding member of the Gaggle here. I've been thinking a lot about this, you guys, because in watching Trump trying to motivate his base here, he's gone right back into his populist rhetoric. He's just slipped right back into almost seamlessly in comparison to what we saw in 2016. He hasn't governed that way at all, okay? And it's really remarkable that he's pushing his anti-war stance right now after you've been in office for 3.5 years, okay? But it also applies what's going on in the Democratic Party. Okay, they shut down Bernie again. Tulsi Gabbard was shut down, and they have these mediocre. They have the super mediocre ticket, a neoliberal ticket. But the populist history that's going to be written is with us, and I think it's going to be very, very powerful. Don, let me go to you because, you know, Trump tapped into things consciously, willingly. We'll never know how he really thinks, I think, but you know, he did tap into something, and Bernie did too. And the flames on both sides here are only going to continue to grow because neoliberalism is a failure. Go ahead, Don.
It's interesting that this kind of confrontation comes to this year, with the COVID and whatever, with the restrictions that are being placed on public assembly and the way that that's being sort of fitted into the campaign. Trump is a nightmare candidate for someone who's not a master of television and public speaking, particularly under duress, where you can't stage big crowds by bringing, say, Mick Jagger on the stage with you or whatever, but rather it's just you and a camera. Trump, had the most popular, or in any event, one of the most popular reality TV shows in history for many years. And he's a master of that particular art form, which is, dovetails into political campaign on television pretty nicely. And on the other hand, in terms of, the crowd speaking, he is sort of like a toastmaster par excellence. That's what he did for a really long time, is go around to hold seminars on real estate, selling condominiums, and all of this stuff. Again, top of the game, one of the people that you would take a course from to learn how to do that.
But you're talking about the presentation of it here, and I absolutely, completely agree with you, okay? Donald Trump is a very difficult candidate to run against because he has all of these skills here. But George, when it comes to content, it's a bit light, I would say, okay? And for real conservatives that want to get away from this libertarianism that has been fused into the party since Reagan, there's a lot of frustration with people like myself, okay? But, I've said this over and over again. In 2016, I only looked at two candidates, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, because they both had a populist message, which meant the not relying upon the tried and failed ideas of the neoliberal elites, because then at that point it's an illusion if what party you're in, doesn't matter, okay? But in a way, Trump he didn't fulfill his mission, at least in his term here. And Bernie wasn't given a chance, okay? Because I think if you would have those real embers on both sides, then it would be a real interesting political conversation, a political conversation we haven't had for 40 years in America. Go ahead.
Yes, I think the thing is that I don't think Trump ever really fully understood what it is that actually swept him to power in 2016. And so when he became president, he kind of thought that, well, it's all really about him and what a successful businessman has been and what a successful self-promoter he's been. And he never really understood the impetus, the popular movement and popular anger that actually swept into power. So he began appointing all sorts of people into his administration who had absolutely no time for any of the populism. We're not just even talking about the foreign policy people. We're talking about the domestic affairs people. There was a classic case when he hired an awful lot of people from Goldman Sachs, and then he came before a crowd one day, and he started justifying himself by hiring these Goldman Sachs people. He said, hey, well, these guys know how to make money. I like people who know how to make money. That's the kind of people we need in America. And he didn't get the sense, what in 2016 was that we don't like people like Goldman Sachs because they are essentially destroying in America. They're shipping jobs overseas. They're the people who are encouraging uncontrolled immigration. They're sucking the capital out of genuine industry. And he just said, hey, well, the Goldman Sachs, they're guys who know how to make money.
No, what he
failed to understand.
What they know is how to transfer wealth up. That's what they're good at. Okay, They don't generate wealth; they transfer it. Okay, they steal essentially the hard-earned wages of working people. Okay, and unfortunately, it gets my blood pressure up. I mean, and then we have this year when the middle class and working people really needed the help, and the establishment came up short, including Trump here. Don, George brings up a fascinating point because he's right. Because when Trump came into power, he thought it was about him. It wasn't about his ideas. And also, if you juxtapose it to Bernie had a level of charisma that he never, ever took advantage of. Because Trump does it on steroids. But Bernie Sanders, Joe's my friend. I think he can beat Donald Trump. When he said that, he said, then why are you running for president? Okay, if you think so. So the thing is that there are real ideas on both sides, but both of the messengers muffed it. Go ahead, Don.
The thing that's really germane about 2016 is that it was both Trump and Sanders, and as you correctly stated, both populists that got floated to the top. They were not backed by the machinery in either party. And consequently, they were lifted by people who were not following the normal patterns of taking orders from on high inside the party apparatus, but rather people who were looking at the election for relief in terms of policy, public policy. This is a different class of voter that generally is not the lead in the, moving the herd around coming into elections. And you saw this rise up in both Democratic and Republican parties in 2016. Coming forward, there's been, a clash, almost like, two lines in a football game or something, banging heads every day between the followers of either trend, despite the fact that there are so many things in common that they had, like, for example, TPP and these other issues. But the real problem is that there's really no outlet for a conversation about any of this stuff in an environment when Trump is calling Biden a communist, which is an absurdity, and Biden is calling Trump a fascist, which is an absurdity. Where does the term populism fit into that vernacular when people use words like they mean nothing?
Don, one thing that is striking about 2016 and then compare that to 2020 is that 2016 was a reaction against Obama. Obama perfectly encapsulated the elite attitude towards the public. The masses are stupid, ignorant, they don't know what's good for them. We are the experts, we are the masters, and we are going to tell them what to do. That was Obama's attitude. And the public felt this, and the public rebelled against this in 2016. But what's happening now is that there is an attempt at an Obama restoration. Because the people who are running in the Democratic Party have exactly that same attitude, which is, you are the great unwashed masses, we are the experts, as when, Speaker Pelosi keeps saying, science, 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 data, 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 even though she has no idea what the hell science is or what data are, but that's their attitude. We stand for science and we stand for data, as opposed to Trump, who is just this yob outside, who doesn't know what's going on in the labs inside. So it's a strange thing that we're back to where we were in 2016, an attempt to restore these kinds of elitists.
There's a difference.
Go ahead.
I want to point to this one difference here. See, what you said about Obama, his behavior, the attitude that people perceive towards the public and all of that is all true, but it doesn't distinguish him from Bush or Clinton or a few presidents going back. They've all treated the public that way with disdain. The difference with Obama was he was elected in the wake of the 2008 crash, where the public's belief in the system was already under extreme duress, and he was elected. They elected the black guy. Okay, in American culture, political culture, that is a remarkable thing. They did it to fix. We can't stand this anymore. That leads us to 2008. Give us hope, give us change. He said yes, and then he did exactly the same thing, and even worse. And that, I think, is the source of the real hostility towards him, and that's something that Trump risks now, because he was elected as a remedy to that kind of betrayal. And so if people have a sense of betrayal now, he's going to get the same treatment that Obama's successor got in 2016.
George, it's interesting, this demonization of Trump in the media and by the Democrats and even among some Republicans, never Trumpers here. But it makes perfect sense for the ruling elites, because it's a deflection away from the root problems that the establishment never will address, because it doesn't harm their status quo. They're still drinking wine in the shower. Okay, so Trump is the perfect foil. Don't look here, look over there. But you know what? That's just delaying it. It's just delaying the reckoning that is coming. George.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it is a matter of pointing to his style, because he comes across as lacking the smoothness and polish, certainly of Obama, but even to a certain extent Biden. Biden is also quite a smooth performer. And Trump is a ruffian. I mean, just look, the way he walks, he's overweight, and he doesn't wear a mask, and he wears a hat, and so on. And yes, and that's what they're doing. They're pointing, well, is this the kind of ruffian you want to run something so esoteric as government? But in actual fact, Trump has been part of the swamp. He hasn't really broken out of the swamp. Everyone he's appointed to positions of power have been members of the swamp. He's rewarded his donor pals, and he's rewarded all the Washington has-beens who've been around for decades, like Pompeo. So it's a matter of style in their attack on Trump rather than substance.
Yeah, Don, that and what that does is that there's going to be in the if the Republican Party wants to survive, and depending on what happens in November, it may not, okay? Because the ruling members in the GOP prefer to be in the minority. They make a lot of money. They don't have to work very hard, and the donors are there with them. But there's going to be someone in a conservative that's going to say, I know what the message is, and I'm going to be a better messenger. And the same thing is going to happen in the left. Definitely happen. I mean, on the left, I watch enough cable TV. There's a lot of smooth lefties, okay? Really smooth and really smart. Most people in the Republican Party are buffoons and idiots, okay? Go ahead, Don.
Not so smooth either. There's on the left you have Dennis Kucinich, for example, with not much to do, and a much better, in my opinion, presenter of some of the stuff that Bernie Sanders presented. Cynthia McKinney, also, she has some opposition, particularly from the AIPAC lobby and such, because of her strong numbers. She went on Gaza flotillas and things like that. But in terms of anti-war and converting, and where's the Pentagon's trillions of dollars going, and things that do matter to an awful lot of people in the country that never get any vetting, and there are others. I think that after this election, regardless of what happens, well, first of all, we're going to have some serious problems in that the energized constituencies that are in the game for populism are going to be disappointed, at least half of them, no matter what happens. And I think this election is going to be under taint for sure, no matter who wins.
Okay, we're rapidly running out of time, but that taint is going to energize both sides, okay? Right. That's good, and that's going to be very volatile. Okay, I want to thank Don, and I want to thank George for being on the Gaggle here. If you like this, please like, share, and subscribe, and we have a lot more ahead.